It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Trajan Wealth brings you this portion of the program. TRAJANwealth.com for all your trusted local needs in retirement. TrajanWealth.com. Joining us right now on the program, though, he covers the Utah Utes for KSLSports.com. He is Steve Bartle on the show here with us. Steve, what's going on, man?
What's up, fellas? How we doing?
Oh, we're just preparing ourselves for what the College Football Playoff Committee is going to do.
I'm already mad, and it hasn't even come out.
Hasn't come out yet. However, you see how the Big 12 is sort of looked at compared to these other conferences who are not just getting multiple bids. Is there any reason why the Big 12 should not have a couple of teams in by the time it's all said and done?
No, I don't think so. I think with what Texas Tech has done this season, with their resume, their level of play and level of execution and production and all the ratings that point to them and the success that they've had with the investment they've put into that roster and having the talent behind all of it as well. I think Texas Tech has done a lot. BYU with their resume and what they've done to this point of the season, and then you've got Utah 7-2, and obviously you look at a lot of the power ratings and stuff, and a lot of those really like Utah and the way that they've performed this season, and they're situated, among top 10, and an ESPN, SP Plus, and all of these other power ratings. So, I think the Big 12 has done enough where you've got these three teams that have performed really well. BYU, obviously, with the unblemished record, and obviously Texas Tech and Utah performing the way that they have against a lot of, the competition in the Big 12, just dominating in a lot of these games. And then you still have Cincinnati, and you still have these other programs that are knocking on the door of the top 25. I think the Big 12 has done a lot. And also you're starting to see chaos, really start to hit a lot of these other conferences as well. The ACC this last week really dropped the ball and helped the Big 12 out. So I think at this point, you have to look at the Big 12 as a team that deserves, multiple bids this year. I think they've done enough to warrant that to this point. Obviously, it's going to be contingent upon those top programs continuing to take care of business the rest of the way. But I think the Big 12 has done a lot to position themselves for a couple bids this year.
So Utah likely anywhere from that 15 to 18 range, probably tonight in the initial college football playoff rankings. And when you consider where they were at, earlier in the season, I mean, that's a pretty good position to be in. They kind of climbed back into the mix. But moving forward, obviously they would have to win out and they need some help. But what is the path for Utah to make it to the final college football playoff rankings, top 12?
Path for them is win out, right? You have to take care of your business first and foremost. And you've got three programs in Baylor, Kansas State, and Kansas that when you start to look at how these teams match up against Utah, you really like the way that Utah matches up with them. I think all three of them are in the bottom half of the Big 12 in rush defense, and two of them, I think it's Baylor is 15 and Kansas is 14. So you really like how Utah matches up there, and that's kind of the formula we've seen with those teams in previous matchups. In previous games this season, is that if you run the ball and take care of the ball, you're going to have a chance to win as long as you don't turn it over. You go back to that Kansas State game against Baylor. Kansas State was rolling, moving the ball up and down the field with the run game. And what happens late in that game is Avery Johnson throws a pick six, late in the game to give Baylor that game. So, it's just, you like the way that Utah matches up with these teams in the final stretch of the season. And now that they're on the bye week to regroup, to refresh, and to reset, you like what that is going to mean for Utah moving forward. Now, in order to get to Arlington in the Big 12 title game, obviously they're going to need some help. And, when Utah didn't get a win against Texas Tech or BYU, that's now, they have the upper hand, obviously, and you're going to need some help. And so this weekend's matchup is going to be really interesting, and a lot of Utah fans are going to be paying very close attention to it. Not just Utah fans, but Utah in general going to be paying close attention to that game.
By
then
paying attention, Steve, just to be clear, you mean rooting for, right? Isn't that what you're saying? Rooting for BYU to win out the rest of the way? Is that what you're saying?
If we're talking about the simplest, easiest route to Arlington,
yes.
That's what we're talking about.
And
not every Utah fan is going to be rooting for that.
No. And selfishly, here in our market, the best thing that could ever happen to this station and to our website is BYU and Utah facing off against one another in the Big 12 championship game. I mean, that would be
a chance to go to the playoff.
I mean, my heavens,
Dude, it would be incredible.
So that's all.
It would be incredible.
Is that too much to ask? Is that we just see these two teams matching up again in Arlington? Hey, we've seen.
I don't think so.
I know. And by the way, like in terms of really good teams in the conference right now, pretty hard to argue against those two being those two teams, right? I mean, and look,
absolutely.
So I mean, it's interesting, and yet at the same time, it would be, and we've seen crazier things happen with tie breaks, and so. I don't know. I just love the idea that, but again, Utah just has to win out, which I think they will, and then you got to have a little bit of help, obviously. And I think that BYU has got one mulligan. I know that's probably not what Kalani says to his team, but that's all you've got. And so in these 4 games, they have to go 3-1. They couldn't do that last year, and so now, how is it that Utah's turned that corner, Steve, of playing? They've played great football all year, but it's been kind of hit and miss, right? And so not just the 2 losses, but what is it that they have figured out now? Is it just the health of Devin Dampier, or what else is being figured out with this team? It also seems like Wayshawn Parker's finding his way as well.
No, this is when you talk about being a player development program, this is the product. You're seeing improvements from where, a few position groups in particular were playing at to begin the season to where they are now. It's almost a night and day difference, right? Utah's just made improvements, incremental improvements each and every week, specifically in the defensive secondary where Utah's made great strides. And you look at some of the numbers that, you go to the Cincinnati game. Brendan Sorsby coming in was one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He finishes the game 11 of 33, in large part due to Utah playing man coverage, making things difficult, not giving up a lot of space, a lot of separation. And that group deserves a lot of credit for what that has done for Utah on the defensive side of the ball. You already had a tremendous defensive front that was capable of getting pressure pretty consistently with or without the blitz. And obviously we know Utah prioritizes stopping the run, and they've done that, maybe not as efficiently and as dominantly as they have in years past, but still efficiently enough to get stops at enough of a rate where you're giving the offense enough opportunities to put together drives and take control of the game. And that's just been the formula for Utah, is this offense with the run game, with Devin Dampier and the offensive line. They're able to put together a couple of quality drives, put some points on the board, and then they're off and running with the run game. And again, hitting their average on the season, 267 yards against Cincinnati, that's really been the key. And I think what's been interesting when you talk about the run game specifically is the emergence of Daniel Bray and what that has done for the run game itself. Now, as Wayshawn Parker gets into the final month of the season, doesn't have a lot of usage, he still has a lot of tread on the tires with only 87 carries on the year. And he's starting to hit his stride with back-to-back 100-yard games. And then again, adding Bray to that mix, just adding another element that opponents have to account for. And it's just really done a lot to preserve the dynamic potential of Utah's rushing attack.
These are not your grandpa's Utah Utes offense. This has been pretty impressive so far, and you got to give Jason Beck a lot of credit for that, and the personnel they brought in have been able to get it done. Steve, they're 10th in scoring offense. I think they're 11th in total offense. Are you surprised that the offense was this good? What was the expectation coming in versus what they've accomplished so far through, 9 games?
I'll say this. I think Utah has had this sort of potential, right? And they've recruited over the years. They've had a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. Obviously, it starts up front for Utah with the offensive line and what they've done to add talent and really dominant players at times. At that group, the run game has always been there, and then the big question mark coming into the season was Devin Dampier and how he would able to be, how he would, um, you know, adapt to the Big 12 conference slate and the level of competition here. And from game one against UCLA, he made a very strong impression. And, he's certainly not an elite level passer by any means, but what he does do is with his dual threat ability, he is an elite level threat there, right? He's able to get Utah into manageable situations. He's also able uh, to to overcome, which he's done a number of times this season, getting Utah out of um, you know long yardage situations, whether it be through the air or with his legs. So he's done a lot to raise his level of play coming up to this level, and I think that's been the key. But when you talk about Jason Beck coming here with his offensive scheme and how it would fit with the personnel already in place, and then with some of the pieces that they added through the portal, um, you know, the numbers in terms of where they land in the conference and in the country are certainly surprising. But this sort of productivity was always there. It was always possible for Utah because of Beck's offense being centered on the run and it fitting with the strengths of this team, with the players already in place. It's sort of the mindset and brand of football under Kyle Whittingham that's been established. I just think it's been it's been surprising to see Utah hit a lot of these elite numbers, but again, it just is a compliment to what they have in place with the offensive line and just how dynamic it's been.
Steve Bartle, Ute Insider for KSLSports.com, joining us here on the program on our short edition of the show as we get you ready for Utah Mammoth. You brought up Jason Beck and just how much of a change has it been up there now that the offense is number 11 in the country in total offense and is number 2 in the country in win deficit and points per game. They're top 5. I mean, those are all really, really good first-year resume, builders, obviously. But and the vibe just must be totally different on top of the fact that, that they're not just winning, but they're also able to put an offense out there. I just want to know what the feeling has been like now that things have been changed over for that year because, you got a whole staff you got to get used to.
Yeah, the vibe has been, very different this year compared to the last couple years up at Utah, especially on that offensive side of the ball. And I think it's been that's a credit to the coaches, right? Jason Beck, Mark Atuaya, Micah Simon coming in and bringing a new energy and a refreshed mindset and a fresh set of eyes, really, to look at things and assess things. And that's been a priority for this staff is, kind of resetting the vibe a little bit. And I think that's been key to Utah. And it's a credit also in large part to the players and, Devin Dampier with what he's brought with his personality and confidence and an understated sort of swagger that I think has been missing at that quarterback spot the last couple years. We asked him what to expect. This was, I think, the final week of fall camp, and he was asked what should fans expect, from the offense this season, and he put it pretty simply. We're going to score the ball. We're going to get touchdowns. We're going to score, and so far they've done that this season. And I think just having that sort of mindset and that sort of confidence is really has been really refreshing to kind of follow this year, both with Dampier, but then just what Beck has brought to this offense and what it's meant to Utah. It's really done a lot to help the defense out a lot. Utah's now been able to play more complementary football and really help the defense out. And I think it's worked really, really well for Utah this season.
Last one I had for you, Steve. Do you have any update as far as the health of the team goes? Who are some guys that really needed this bye week to get healed up, and how could that help Utah in this final stretch?
Yeah, Utah's in pretty good shape. You look at some of the availability reports. You look at Utah's and how they compare to some others in the conference, and theirs is a pretty short list. Now, obviously they're not going to list everybody that has an injury. Everybody has bumps and bruises at this point of the season, but I think Utah's pretty healthy for the most part, and still this bye week came at a really good time. Obviously, you go back to Saturday night's game, and Devin Dampier was out there, and after seeing him against Arizona State, where he truly looked 100%, where he had that sort of elite explosiveness and elusiveness, that was missing. Saturday night. Still mobile enough to create with his legs, but I think the bye week comes at a good time for him. There's a couple other guys. Smith Snowden, I know, wasn't 100% Saturday night against Cincinnati as well. I think the bye week comes at a good time for him, and really just a couple other guys. Dallas Vakalahi, defensive tackle, Semi Tawalonga, the converted tight end, fullback. I think the bye week comes at a really good time for those guys, and I think Utah, beyond just those names, I think everybody getting a couple days to reset and refresh is going to really benefit them moving forward. They've done, Whittingham's talked about it. They've taken a different approach this year in terms of how they've utilized their bye weeks, and they've prioritized more rest. And I think that's really benefited them this season when you look at the injuries and compared to the last couple years where it's been just a lengthy report of season-ending injuries. Utah's done well to manage things, and it's been because they've prioritized a little bit more rest and recovery than they have in years past.
Steve Bartle, he's our Utah insider for KSLSports.com. Always does an awesome job breaking this team down, and we're going to be fascinated over the next few weeks how things start to shape up for not just Utah, but of course the Big 12 overall, and just kind of see where everybody shakes out. But in the end, got to win out. If you're Utah, no choice but to win out to even have a chance. And so that's where we're, of course, watching this thing closely. But Steve, thanks for your time, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
There you go.
Steve.
Steve Bartle, everybody.
Enjoy the bye week.